The concept of green eyes is actually a massive oversimplification. Unlike brown eyes, which derive their color from actual brown pigment, green eyes are a visual trick. They are a masterpiece of physics, lighting, and genetic architecture. Looking at the human population as a whole, true green eyes are incredibly rare, estimated to occur in only about 2% of the global population. But within this tiny 2% lies a spectrum of diversity that is absolutely wild. We are not talking about a single color here. We are talking about different structural phenomena that create 7 completely distinct visual experiences. By the time we reach the end of this video, you will understand exactly how light manipulates the architecture of the eye to produce these stunning variations. Have you ever wondered if what you thought was a single color is actually a complex optical illusion? Let's dive right in with a type that is often mislabeled but holds a fascinating secret in its structure: the aqua or turquoise variant. Imagine standing on the shore of a glacial lake. You know that the water isn't actually blue in color. It is clear, but because of the way the deep water scatters sunlight, it appears as this piercing, crystalline teal. This is the perfect physical analogy for what we call the aqua-green eye. In the world of iris observation, this is often the most confusing category because it sits right on the border between blue and green. What causes this is not a turquoise pigment. The human body does not produce blue or green pigments in the iris. Instead, this eye type relies on what is known as the Tyndall effect, similar to the scattering that makes the sky blue. In these eyes, there is almost no melanin in the front layer of the iris, known as the stroma. The stroma here is usually very fine and has a delicate structure. When light hits it, the shorter blue wavelengths scatter wildly. But here is the kicker. There is a tiny, microscopic hint of a yellow pigment called lipochrome. When this scattered blue light mixes with this faint yellow filter, your eye perceives a vibrant sea glass aqua. It is a balancing act. If the collagen fibers in the iris were slightly thicker, the eye would look gray. If there were more lipochrome, it would look entirely green. This specific type is essentially a state of limbo between blue and green, creating a look that seems to shift depending on the shirt you are wearing or the weather outside. It isn't magic. It is simply the physics of light scattering, changing based on the environment. Now, let's shift the spectrum to something warmer and earthier, a type that has a weighty history in genetic research: the olive green eye. If the aqua eye is a glacial lake, the olive green eye is an antique bronze statue or a sun-drenched forest floor. This variant is fascinating because it breaks the rule that green eyes must be light. Olive green eyes are characterized by a much richer, darker depth. They do not have that piercing, translucent quality of the lighter tones. Instead, they have a matte finish that absorbs light differently. Biologically speaking, this is the result of a moderate melanin content. You have the same light scattering that creates the green base, but it is overlaid by a heavier blanket of natural brown melanin. Imagine looking at a green light through a pair of sunglasses. The intensity is muted, and the color becomes moodier and more complex, much like moss on a rock. It creates a soft, inviting look that many people find trustworthy and warm, likely because it bridges the gap between the intensity of light eyes and the depth of dark eyes. From earth tones, we move on to a type that is arguably the most famous, yet most misunderstood: true emerald green. This is the holy grail of green eyes, the type you see on magazine covers. It is vibrant, solid, and incredibly striking. Unlike the olive or aqua types, emerald green eyes do not seem to change their color as much. They remain a bold grass green regardless of the lighting. To understand how an emerald green eye exists, you have to imagine a prism. In these eyes, the stroma, that fibrous layer of the iris, is clear enough to scatter light effectively and create a blue base. But unlike the blue-green eyes we discussed earlier, emerald green eyes possess a much higher concentration of that yellow lipochrome pigment we mentioned. It is a simple art class equation applied to biology. A strong blue scatter plus a strong yellow pigment equals a vibrant, unmistakable green. Current observations in the field of iridology suggest that the glow associated with emerald green eyes stems from the clarity of the stroma. The fibers are arranged in such a way that light can penetrate deep into the iris and reflect back out, illuminating this yellow pigment from within. It is similar to a laser moving through a gemstone. Since there is very little brown melanin to muddy the color, the green emerges with astonishing purity. It is a recessive trait that requires a very specific roll of the genetic dice, making it one of the rarest confirmed phenotypes in humans. Now, let's break the pattern. We have looked at blue-green, earthy greens, and pure green. But what happens when the eye decides to be a chameleon? That brings us to the hazel-green variant. You might be thinking, wait, isn't hazel its own category? On many medical forms, yes, but in the study of color mechanics, many hazel eyes are actually green eyes with a central concentration of melanin. This is often referred to as central heterochromia. Imagine a solar eclipse. You have a dark center surrounded by a radiant ring of light. That is the structure of a hazel-green eye. The outer ring of the iris is a true green, caused by the same light scattering we have discussed. Closer to the pupil, however, there is a distinct concentration of brown or golden melanin. The reason we classify this as a green variant is that the dominant impression, especially from conversational distance, is often green. The magic of this eye type lies in its dynamics. As the pupil dilates and constricts depending on light and emotion, the amount of visible green relative to brown actually changes physically. When the pupil is small in bright sunlight, the green outer ring is maximized and the eye looks vibrant. When the pupil dilates in a dimly lit room, the green is compressed and the brown center dominates. This leads to the common experience of people with this eye color saying their eyes change with their mood. It is not a mood ring, it is simply the mechanics of the iris curtain revealing or concealing different layers of pigment. Let's turn to the shadows with our next type. The forest, or hunter green eye. If the emerald green eye is a sunlit meadow, then the hunter green eye is the deep ocean, or a dense pine forest at dusk. These are the darkest in the green spectrum, and are often mistaken for brown in low light. The beauty of this type lies in its subtlety. It demands that you look closer. The biological difference here is density. Researchers believe that in dark green eyes, the collagen structure of the iris is thicker. When the stroma is dense, it doesn't scatter light as much as in lighter eyes. It absorbs more light. Combine this with a moderate amount of melanin, and you get a color that is rich, deep, and intense. This type is fascinating because it challenges the idea that light eyes are purely about the absence of pigment. Here, there is enough pigment to create depth, but not enough to turn the eye brown. It's a fine line. In a clinical context, we often see that people with this eye color have slightly better protection against UV glare than their lighter-eyed counterparts, simply because this darker canvas absorbs scattered light more effectively. It is a functional beauty, offering a gaze that feels solid and grounding rather than airy or ethereal. Now, we must shift to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. We've discussed the dark and the vibrant, but what about the ghostly? That is the mint or pale green eye. This is perhaps the most ethereal and striking of them all. Imagine a piece of frosted glass with a faint green light behind it. These eyes can appear almost transparent. They are often described as piercing or icy, yet they differ from blue ice. The science behind the mint green eye is an extreme lack of pigmentation. Here, the stroma is very loose, containing very little melanin and only a hint of lipochrome. Because there is so little material to absorb the light, almost all of it is scattered back out. It's the same principle that makes a cloud look white. The light reflects off everything. Because there is only a hint of that yellow tone, the scattering shifts from white-blue to a pale mint-green. Observational data suggests that individuals with this eye type are often more sensitive to bright light, photophobia, simply because their irises let more light through to the retina. It's a trade-off. You get a stunning, rare eye color that looks almost supernatural, but you might find yourself reaching for sunglasses even on a cloudy day. The aesthetic impact of mint green eyes is enormous, as they create such a stark contrast with the pupil. The black center stands out sharply against the pale iris, creating an intense, focused gaze that is impossible to ignore. Finally, we come to the rarest and perhaps most visually complex type, the gold, or amber green eye. This is not to be confused with pure amber eyes, which are solid gold throughout. The amber green eye is a green eye that has been gilded. Imagine looking at a green leaf in late autumn, right when the veins begin to turn gold. That is the color palette we are working with here. This phenomenon occurs when lipochrome, that yellow pigment, is deposited heavily but unevenly. Instead of blending perfectly with the blue scattering to create emerald green, the yellow lies on top in distinct clouds or rays. This creates an effect where the eye looks green in the shadows, but the moment sunlight hits it, it lights up in shades of gold and copper. Evolutionary biology suggests that lipochrome is a fascinatingly unstable variable. Unlike melanin, which is fairly consistent, lipochrome deposits can vary greatly in density and placement. In these eyes, the result is a metallic sheen. It is a look often associated with animals, wolves, or big cats, which is why this eye type is frequently described as wild or exotic. It is a reminder of our biological connection to the animal kingdom, an unadulterated display of genetic variation that feels ancient and powerful. The interplay between the cool green background and the warm golden foreground creates a color vibration that the human brain finds particularly stimulating. So why does all this matter? Why do we care whether an eye is mint green, olive green, or emerald green? Because it reminds us that green is just a label we attach to a complex reality. When you look into someone's eyes, you don't just see a color. You see the specific density of their collagen fibers. You see the exact amount of melanin their ancestors needed to survive in their environment. The next time you look in the mirror or meet someone new, take an extra second. Don't just look at the color. Look at the structure. Look at the light. Look at the history written in the iris. You might even discover a type we haven't covered today. Which of these 7 types is closest to your own eyes? Or which one do you find the most fascinating? Let me know in the comments if this exploration of the hidden science behind our eyes has changed the way you look at the human gaze. Please subscribe to our channel and like this video. We uncover the biological history and genetic wonders that have been hiding right in front of our eyes. Join us as we continue to reveal the secrets of our existence. The next treasure trove of knowledge will be opened soon.